With Nico Hulkenberg finally getting his first podium at the British Grand Prix, let's take a look back at 11 lost Nico Hulkenberg podiums. Now, these tend to fit into 3 categories. The first is that they were potential podiums only because of Nico Hulkenberg's starting position. The other 2 categories are both when there was a realistic chance in the race that Hulkenberg would score a podium, and then either he made a mistake or, for no fault of his own, he was taken out of podium contention. 2010 Brazilian Grand Prix. This is one of the races where the podium potential is decided by Hulkenberg's starting position. Miraculously, Nico Hulkenberg showed his skill in changeable conditions by taking pole position in a Williams for the 2010 Brazilian Grand Prix. At the start, he lost the lead to Sebastian Vettel, and further on lap 1, at the exit of turn 4, Webber passed Hulkenberg. He dropped out of the podium positions on lap 7 when he was passed by Fernando Alonso. He continued to drop down the field for the rest of the race, coming home 8th and a lap down, but in a car far too slow to be fighting for podiums. 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. The 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix was Hulkenberg's first time back in Brazil after taking pole in 2010. He was now driving for Force India and qualified 6th behind both McLarens, both Red Bulls and Felipe Massa. There was rain in the air pre-race, but everyone started on slicks. Hulkenberg stayed 6th at the start, but at the start of lap 2 capitalised on a battle in front of him to take 5th from Massa. At the end of this lap, with rain falling, Hulkenberg passed Webber to take 4th, once again showing his prowess in changeable conditions. At turn 1 on lap 5, Fernando Alonso locked up and went straight on, handing Hulkenberg 3rd place. While the leading McLarens scrapped for first position in damp conditions, Hulkenberg was catching them both. On lap 11, Hamilton came into the pits to fit intermediates, promoting Hulkenberg to 2nd place, only behind Jenson Button. The inters were briefly quicker, but the track soon dried out, and all those who stopped for inters had to pit again to switch back to slicks. By lap 16, Hulkenberg had caught Button and was pressuring him for the lead. On lap 18, Hulkenberg got a great run out of the final corner and passed Button to take the lead for the first time in his career. With the top 2 45 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, the safety car was deployed due to debris on the track. Hulkenberg and Button pitted under the safety car and remained 1-2, with Hamilton in 3rd. The safety car came in on lap 29 and Hulkenberg retained the lead. Behind Hulkenberg, Hamilton passed Button for 2nd. Light rain started around lap 40 and Hamilton began catching Hulkenberg. Under pressure from Hamilton, Hulkenberg got on a white line and almost spun, giving the Briton the lead. Lewis Hamilton was held up behind traffic and Hulkenberg caught back up to the McLaren. Then this happened.
Something's not right. Look at that, Hulkenberg right on Hamilton.
He is. Hamilton slowed by the back markers. He locks up. Hulkenberg might just go through here and back up into the lead. No, they've touched! And Hamilton and Hulkenberg come together. Damage for Hamilton and Hulkenberg. And the back markers getting in the way and seemingly ruining the afternoon for Hulkenberg and Hamilton as Button goes through. There's Timo Glock on the right-hand side. Hamilton is now kind of caught in the middle, but he's got past.
Hulkenberg slid into Hamilton, causing terminal damage to the McLaren, and Hulkenberg was given a drive-through penalty, eventually coming home 5th, a real missed opportunity. 2013 Italian Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg, now in a Sauber, qualified 3rd for the 2013 Italian Grand Prix. He got a poor start and was passed by both Ferraris immediately. He held 5th position, defending from Nico Rosberg for a lot of the race. He was catching Massa and Webber in 4th and 3rd towards the end of the race, but ran out of time, finishing 4 seconds outside of the podium places, with an impressive drive at Monza. 2014 Bahrain Grand Prix. Hulkenberg lined up 11th for the 2014 Bahrain Grand Prix. He got a great start and was 7th by turn 4. He then locked up and dropped a position to Fernando Alonso. He retook 7th on lap 4, overtaking Alonso at turn 1. On lap 10 he passed Bottas to move up to 6th. Made his first pit stop on lap 16 from 5th and undercut his teammate Perez, who was 3rd before his stop. Once everyone had pitted, they were 5th and 6th, and catching the Williams drivers who were 3rd and 4th. Valtteri Bottas pitted on lap 25 and Hulkenberg immediately attacked Massa. He couldn't pull the move off and instead he was overtaken by Perez, which would end up being crucial. Perez overtook Massa on lap 27 and Hulkenberg followed him through a few corners later. The Force Indians were now 3rd and 4th. After the second and final pit stops, Hulkenberg rejoined 3.6 seconds behind Perez, and on lap 41 the safety car was deployed, and Perez and Hulkenberg were 3rd and 4th in the queue. At the restart, Hulkenberg attempted to overtake Perez, but the Mexican held on to 3rd. Hulkenberg soon dropped back from his teammate, and with 5 laps remaining, Daniel Ricciardo passed him, ending his podium hopes. 2016 Monaco Grand Prix. Hulkenberg qualified 5th in Monaco in 2016. and the race started under the safety car due to rain. When the safety car came in, he formed part of a train stuck behind Nico Rosberg, who was second and driving very slowly. He was promoted to 4th on lap 14 when Sebastian Vettel pitted ahead of him, and lap 15 Hulkenberg pitted for intermediates himself, rejoining 9th. He was soon stuck in a train behind Felipe Massa, who was still on full wets. Hulkenberg's teammate Perez, who was behind him and slower before Hulkenberg pitted for Inters, himself pitted for Inters on lap 22 and came out in 4th ahead of Hulkenberg. Perez then undercut Rosberg when they switched to dry tyres and came home 3rd, a podium which should have been Hulkenberg's if he'd have got what turned out to be the optimal strategy of staying on full wets for longer. 2016 Austrian Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg qualified 3rd and was promoted to 2nd due to Nico Rosberg's grid penalty at the 2016 Austrian Grand Prix. At the start, Hulkenberg fell to 5th before retaking Daniel Ricciardo for 4th. He was passed by Rosberg on lap 6, and his race fell apart from there, immediately being passed by Verstappen, before an extra pit stop and a pit lane speed limit penalty, meant Hulkenberg was a lap down when he retired with brake issues towards the end of the race. 2016 Belgian Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg lined up 7th on the grid for the 2016 Belgian Grand Prix, and at the start, the Ferraris and Max Verstappen collided, and Hulkenberg benefited, rising to 3rd, which became 2nd when he passed Verstappen's damaged Red Bull later in the lap. This lasted until lap 6 when the safety car came out for Kevin Magnussen's crash at Radial. A few laps later, this was upgraded to a red flag. He pitted under the safety car, so was 3rd at the restart because Daniel Ricciardo stayed out during the safety car and jumped him. At the restart, Hulkenberg defended from Alonso and stayed 3rd. Soon after, Lewis Hamilton took 4th, having started from the pit lane. A few laps later, Hamilton caught and passed Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg came home 4th, but it was really a case of what could have been without that red flag. 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg was 13th on the grid for the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix, now in a Renault. Due to a good start and incidents ahead, Hulkenberg was 10th by the end of lap 1. This became 8th when Ricciardo pitted and Verstappen retired. Hulkenberg pitted under the safety car on lap 13 and remained 8th. At the restart, both Force Indias collided and Hulkenberg briefly moved into 6th, before being passed by Ricciardo. He was soon back to being in 6th because Raikkonen had got a puncture, and these incidents caused a red flag. At the restart, Ricciardo made a great move to take 3rd, with Hulkenberg still in 6th, after briefly passing Massa. He did pass Massa on the next lap to take 5th behind Vettel, who'd soon get a 10-second stop-and-go penalty, and Hamilton, whose headrest was loose, and who needed to pit to replace it. He didn't notice at the time, but Hulkenberg was in a net 3rd, and then Magnussen passed him. Later on that lap, he turned in too early at turn 7 and broke his suspension, ending his podium chances once again. 2017 Singapore Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg started 7th in 2017 for the Singapore Grand Prix, and it was the first ever wet night race in Formula 1. Some opted to start at intermediates, and some, including Hulkenberg, went for full wets. A collision between the leaders at the start allowed Hulkenberg to move up to 3rd. He retained 3rd at the restart after the safety car. On lap 12, under another safety car, Daniel Ricciardo pitted from 2nd for a fresh set of intermediates. This promoted Hulkenberg to 2nd. A lap later, while still under the safety car, Hulkenberg pitted for intermediates and rejoined 5th, losing out to Bottas and Sainz, who started on intermediates. Hulkenberg overcut Sainz when they switched to dry tyres, and when everyone had pitted, he was up to 4th. After his stop, he stuck with Bottas and stayed within a couple of seconds of the podium positions. On lap 38, Hulkenberg pitted again under another safety car, but this time due to an issue. The Renault crew had to refill his hydraulics, and Hulkenberg rejoined 10th, surely ending his podium hopes. To add insult to injury, towards the end of the race, Hulkenberg had to retire due to an oil leak, and this race was the race when Hulkenberg broke the record for the driver with the most races without a podium. 2019 German Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg lined up 9th for the 2019 German Grand Prix. The track was wet at the start and the formation lap was behind the safety car. At the start, Hulkenberg rose to 6th, which became 5th with a great move at the hairpin. On lap 3, the safety car came out and Hulkenberg, along with most others, pitted for intermediates, rejoining 7th, with 2 cars staying out. But he'd regained those positions in a few laps after the safety car came in. On lap 15, the VSC came out, and Hulkenberg took the chance to fit a fresh set of inters. However, the VSC ended while he was in the pits, meaning he lost time and rejoined 6th behind Raikkonen. A few laps later, Hulkenberg got the position back at the hairpin. Around the time that people were switching to dry tyres, Charles Leclerc went off, promoting Hulkenberg to P4. This caused a safety car, and Hulkenberg pitted for fresh inters. He was promoted to third when Hamilton went off and had a slow pit stop. This became second when Bottas pitted a lap later. Hulkenberg lost out to both Mercedes after the restart and was down to fourth on lap 38. While still running fourth, Hulkenberg ran wide and hit the wall at the final corner, ending his race. When he retired, he was 3 and 7 places ahead of eventual podium finishers Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Kvyat, respectively. 70th Anniversary Grand Prix 2020. Finally, is the 70th Anniversary Grand Prix in 2020. Hulkenberg was called up to drive for Racing Point in this race because Sergio Perez had tested positive for COVID. Nico Hulkenberg qualified an impressive third, but fell to fourth at the start. He pitted on lap 15 and rejoined 7th due to others staying out longer, but he was a net 4th. He rejoined in 6th after his second stop, but a net 5th. He lost the position to Leclerc because he was 1 stopping compared to Hulkenberg's 2 stop. He then pitted again with 7 laps to go, dropping him to 7th, where he finished in what was looking like a promising race for his podium chances at the start. And that is the end of Hulkenberg's lost podiums. Which one do you think was closest to happening? And let me know if I missed any.